Welcome to Conversations at Art Basel, Miami Beach. I am Ed Winkleman, and we are very delighted today to have a very wide range of points of view on a topic that I think most people at Art Basel are interested in, at least most of the gallerists, which is how to reach new collectors. We're very lucky to have Andrew Goldstein, the editor-in-chief at Artnet News, who will guide us through this topic. Andrew will introduce our panelists in a moment, but please join me in giving them all a very warm welcome.
So good morning and good afternoon, everybody. As Ed said, I'm Andrew Goldstein. I'm the editor-in-chief of Artnet News and the host of the Art Angle podcast. And today I'm delighted to be here with this very distinguished panel to discuss the topic of how galleries can cultivate new collectors. And now this might seem like a slightly niche topic, but it's actually incredibly important for anybody who cares about art. And here's why. As we all know, it's the smaller and more mid-sized galleries that actually do the hard spade work of discovering new artists and then making the financial risks in order to nurture them through their early years of success. It's only really at the later stages of an artist's career where there are, or their arc of success, that the bigger global galleries swoop in and steal the artist, reaping the rewards of all the smaller galleries' financial investment. So at the same time, the global forces that have been enabling these bigger galleries to expand internationally and have footprints all over the world, at the same time, these forces are making it harder and harder for the smaller galleries to compete, because not only do they have to manage and run a gallery in their hometown, they also now have to be moving constantly in these international peregrinations to go from art fair to art fair in the hunt for new buyers. And according, as we know from the Art Basel UBS Art Market Report from this June, finding new buyers is actually the #1 most pressing challenge for any new smaller or mid-sized gallery. As a matter of fact, it's these smaller galleries, the smallest galleries in the art ecosystem, that are struggling the most right now. They're the ones who are impacted in the most negative way by the kind of global spread of the art market, while the people who are at the top are benefiting by far the most. So what this means is that it's incredibly important to figure out a way for these smaller galleries to overcome this challenge and find new buyers, because this is where the new art comes from. If the smaller galleries are struggling, that just means that there is less of a pipeline of great new art to be coming into the art ecosystem. So to discuss this topic and try to come up with some actionable solutions, ideally, I am joined today by Anita Zabludowicz, who is the dream collector for many young galleries. When Anita appears in a gallery's doorstep, that is a huge thing for a gallery. And Anita has been championing some of the most experimental young galleries around the world to build the Zabludowicz collection, which is in London. I'm also joined by Lisa Schiff, who, as one of New York City's top art advisors, has been connecting many new collectors to emerging and experimental galleries all up and down the chain. And then we actually have one dealer who has been brave enough to come here and talk about this situation, and that is Omayra Alvarado from Bogotá's Instituto de Visión. And I'm very happy to begin the discussion with Omayra, because I think you might have a unique perspective into this. So before we talk about the importance of new collectors, can you tell us a little bit about the importance of your gallery? Why don't you tell us what have you brought to the survey section this year?
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me. This year we decided to shift what we were showing. Our gallery was founded in 2014, and we started doing Art Basel Miami that same year, and we always been at the Nova section. So my gallery has two programs. One is a young mid-career Latin American, and the other program is a research-based program with practices from the 60s and 70s, some early 80s, of artists that for many reasons left the art scene or are not recognized today. And they are very important to understand not only the contemporary practices in Latin America, but to understand that Latin America had very avant-garde thought since the 50s and 60s and 40s. So for this year, we were thinking that it will be important to showcase that part of our program that sometimes is complex to bring to our fairs because either shipping is too expensive or just the material is not available or it's a little too edgy. And for example, when we were thinking about doing it, we decided to do Miguel Ángel Cárdenas, who's a fantastic, fantastic artist. He was born in a very, very small town in Colombia in the mid-30s, and early in his life, he wins a scholarship to go to Europe to study painting. And what he really wanted to do was leave Colombia because he was gay, and of course, the society was very, very conservative, so he didn't fit at all. So he had to go, and it becomes very, very important for him because he thought that as soon as he arrived to Europe, things were going to be easy and he was going to be accepted and life will be a dream. And of course, it wasn't like that. And he understood, and that changed his practice fundamentally. The interesting thing is that he started doing performance, happenings, video. He was one of the founders of the video program at the Rights Academy. He was part of the seminal show, the Nouveau Realism, in Hay in '64. Actually, part of the pieces that we have here are from that show. So this kind of radical thought was not understood and was not even seen as Latin American. So those things are important for us to, in a place like Miami particularly, when you have a big crowd of Latin American, but also collectors from the US and Europe coming in. So
there's one thing that you told me that I thought was very moving and is really significant about the importance of galleries like yours, which is that this artist was despairing about his whole career being forgotten when he came in contact with the gallery. He was in an advanced stage of Parkinson's. He had been requesting to be put on the list for euthanasia in the Netherlands. And after coming in contact with the gallery, he got his first show. And it was during this first show that the government gave him the permission to die through euthanasia. And so it's an extraordinary kind of thing for a gallery to be able to make this kind of vision visible at a time when it could have been lost. So while your gallery is called the Instituto de Visión, which sounds a little bit like a museum, it's not. It is very much a commercial gallery. And so why don't you tell us about how important is it for you to find new collectors, new patrons, to help keep the lights on?
Well, it's vital. It's fundamental. The gallery, it is a commercial gallery, and it's true. It sounds a little tricky with the name, but for us, it's a challenge, especially in a market like Colombia, with the kind of gallery that we run, because we are 3 female partners. We all come from an academical background, so everything that we put up sometimes can be a little too challenging for our market. And the kind of artists that we have, so we still need to be like out in the run. So it is always very important because sometimes one client will be like a patron of yours forever, and then you need way more. So it's always like a challenge.
You told me that you have about 10 to 15 collectors who are continual collectors, and that the rest of them are actually people who do business once, do business twice, they appear, they reappear, but you constantly have to be replenishing the supply of buyers who are engaging with the gallery. So, and most of these are not actually in Bogotá, if I'm correct. So why, I mean, you even told me that the gallery has scaled back the shows that it does to 3 per year because the clientele for your program is not actually in the city. You find it all over the world. So how do you find these new buyers? How do you go out there into the world and actually track down new collectors for your program?
Well, the main, of course, the main conduct, it's our art fairs, clearly, which are very challenging because depending of the art fair, the economical risks are very high. So, but then if you don't go, you don't get to meet good clients. And my very best clients I have met in art fairs. And there's people that have been supporting us constantly that understand the importance of our job, of our dedication of the artist. And yesterday we were having this very interesting conversation on how like it is an ecosystem. We all are relevant in different ways, and we all need each other. You know, there's no art scene without artists, there's no art scene without collectors, there's no art scene without galleries or institutions. So we all need to like work together. So, and for us, that means going outside and to do the art fairs.
So Anita, as somebody whose patronage has been vital for dozens of younger galleries, where are the collectors so hard to find? where are you guys hiding?
Well, I know back in 2005, we felt it was really important to support young collectors, and we found a way by supporting a small fair called Zoo Art Fair. I don't know if you can remember it, you might do. And it supported so many young galleries, and we did this for 2 or 3 years till they were on their feet, and then they didn't need our help anymore. And then, of course, after that, we went into support Sunday Art Fair, which is still going strong, and it's always important to support the younger art fairs. I remember so many years ago, I don't know if any of you other collectors did this, but when I was a bit younger, we would visit 20 art fairs in 3 days in Miami.
Wow. There
were so many art fairs, and it was like we couldn't stop. We would just go to hotel rooms and to battered down old buildings. Anywhere where there was art, we would find it. It was quite... In old containers, they had art fairs as well in Miami. They don't have them like that so much now, but it was a lot of fun. So in that way, we've always supported the galleries by supporting the younger galleries and always being there for them and helping them to evolve, because they're the ones who are also supporting the artists. So in that way, as we are supporting the galleries, we are also supporting the artists, and it's about the artists, and that's what's important to us.
So you're very energetic in going out there and actively looking for art. What are some ways that a gallery should approach you?
Well, there's all sorts of different ways, but I think the best way for a gallery to support me, and I imagine that you must be one of those wonderful galleries that actually, there is like Society, Daniel Wilhas in the audience, I saw him there. It's not just about walking into a gallery for half an hour and being bored. It's about conversation, discourse, and I like to be educated, and we discover so much, and it becomes so interesting. And this is the approach that we like. Also, of course, we understand that there is a little bit of schmoozing and a few little games. That's absolutely fine, but this is what we like most.
And so what's the wrong way to approach you?
The wrong way is just the aggressive approach, and to say, oh, this is really hot, everyone else has bought this, or the Rubels have just bought this piece, you know. There was one artist in Nada and showing here also in the fair. And I actually asked a big collector, and I said, what's so great about this artist? Why are you all going mad for him? And they said, well, they paint his face with the finger. And I'm like, okay, but I don't like it.
I mean, you told me another.
It's bad.
You told me another thing that you don't like is that when a gallery seems to be asking its artists to churn out lots of work, and that you like to be engaged by galleries that have a little bit more of a organic kind of sustainable approach to their artists.
Yeah, I'm very much against production, and I know that these poor galleries are under a lot of pressure, and the artists are under a lot of pressure because they go to art fair, and they have to show their work. But to produce too many works and the work becomes not as good, not as intense, it's not the quality that I would be looking for. It undermines the artist to produce too much work. And I find the production line method very off-putting.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so you have a lot of time and the resources necessary to do collecting fairly as a full-time job, in a sense. You devote a lot of your time. Oh,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So collecting for us is a full-time work. It's 24/7. I wake up dreaming about it, and the fairs are very important to us. But also there's other ways that we love to support the artists. We have an exhibition space called Zabludowicz Collection in London, in Kentish Town. We support through residencies. It's very important to always be supporting the artists themselves. We like the artists to be alive, not dead, because we actually like to work with the artists. That's very important to us. I like to also inform and share. I love to share, and so do my team. So I've been writing an art diary for the past 12 years, and we have 30,000 readers a year, and it's been quite successful, and it's very quiet. It's on the Zabludowicz collection website, and it's been there, and it's free advice for any collector. We had a problem because we've always collected digital work intensely, and we felt that there was a space where digital art was not recognized to its fullest, and we felt that we wanted to help, so I was a founder of Data Editions with David Grin, and we created a platform where we've been able to show digital art, sell digital art, subscribe digital art, and it's been a really great experience, and 450 works have been commissioned by ourselves, and also they share royalties, so it's really been a successful platform, and so that's been really great, and yeah.
So not every collector who comes to Art Basel has the time to put so much of their own effort into the sourcing, tracking down, and finding of new art. And this, of course, is where art advisors like Lisa come into play. So, Lisa, when you are working with your really kind of illustrious roster of clients that you work with, how do you decide which galleries to direct them to?
Actually, can I start with a different comment?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I think part of the question is more not how do you find collectors, but how do you develop confident collectors like Anita. And I don't think my job as an art advisor is about time. I think it's about helping people understand the terrain. And I think there's a bifurcation, and you actually flip back and forth between the word buyer and collector. I think there's a big problem right now where the mega galleries, and by the way, it is a precious ecosystem and we all need each other, so I love them. But what's happened is there's a real focus on the artist, as there should be. But it used to be that a gallery would have half of their attention on their artists and half on their collectors. And now, at the larger end, all of your attention, and probably at the smaller end too, but I'm not a gallery, so I don't know, but all of your attention is on your artists, making sure you don't lose them, making sure they're happy, they're turning into celebrities, as they should be. They've always been the talent. We sit and talk about the art market all day. We don't talk about the artists or the art sometimes. But what's happening is, because you get such a huge kind of corporation where the attention is no longer on the collector, but it's on the artist, it turns into a bottom line situation where you have a sales force who is now selling to you as a collector and not advising you or placing work with you. And so there's a new breed of buyers being developed, which I don't think is a healthy situation. And I think the healthy situation is to develop more confident collectors who understand that they don't have to buy with their ears or follow the masses, but they have to believe in their gut and their heart and what they love, and that they also, I think for me, I feel like the collectors and the artists really hold all the cards. If you can really believe in what you're doing and not listen to auction estimates and comps and just buy from the gut, which Anita is doing, then you're in a great shape. But to develop that is hard. And as an advisor, I'm not looking for people who need me because they don't have enough time. I actually typically start with people who have never collected before. And always they say, I'm not a collector. But I'm like, give me a year. And most of them develop the bug, but I really see my job as not telling them what I like, what they should buy, but just trying to get them to believe in what they can see. And all I can do is be someone there to protect them from being sold to. I want to be there to help them make the decision themselves. It's not me. And so I want them to turn into great collectors, because the survival of the art market that matters to me is based on more Anitas. So I really work hard as an advisor to try to turn my collectors and clients into Anitas. And that doesn't mean they don't need me anymore. Anita, I'm available for hire. No, I'm just kidding. It's more, it's like a partnership. But I've really learned, and it took a long time. In the beginning, I didn't understand what the hell I was doing. But it is really important to push my clients forward, unless they're very private and want to be back, but to bring them into the art world, to be okay if galleries are calling them directly. Like, there's no conflict there. I don't own them. It's not my money. I'm just a sounding board, and I'm trying to make sense of things.
So when you deal with a new collector who may, or potentially a nascent collector who doesn't have that much experience in art or the art world at all, do you introduce them to artists, to galleries? Do you have, what lens do you kind of lead them through? Are galleries important in this nurturing phase of a new collector, or is it mainly about the art specifically?
I find the galleries incredibly important. This might not be the right thing to say, but for me, I have 3 tenets that I always tell my clients. The first is the work has to be visually and or conceptually compelling to you, number 1. Number 2, it has to be historically relevant. It's got to be participating in a conversation about the world at large, or about art historical conversation or formal conversation. And number 3, it needs to be strategically placed. Now that is the kind of lowest on the totem pole, but the truth is, I can take you into an artist's studio before they have a gallery and try to get you deals, but I cannot do the job that she can do of nurturing this artist into where he needs to go. I have to say, the gallery's job is the worst job on earth. It's the hardest job. Being an advisor is so easy compared to being a gallery. I could never do the job that a gallery does, and that's why I'm an advisor. But I also don't want to, I'm happy to go into artist studios, and I love discovering new artists, but I do think art is expensive. And again, this isn't necessarily about, I want to differentiate between investment and speculation. We have a lot of clients who $20,000 is a lot of money. It's a high risk number from like an investment, and by this I'm talking about your held value, not your transacted value. But I want to make sure that the artists that they're buying are going to get into museums. They're going to be nurtured. They're going to have the kind of support they need. So it is very important to me, the galleries I talk to.
So, Omayra, you have recently moved to Los Angeles, where you are. We were talking about how many of your collectors are outside of Bogotá. Here you are actually prospecting for them in Los Angeles, based in the United States. So you told me that while you're there, art advisors have become an increasingly important kind of client for you. So how do you engage art advisors out there? What do you have new tactics for trying to enter into these art advisor kind of pools?
No, unfortunately, I do not have any new tactics. I wish I did. No, I think it's just, Anita said it too, it's about relationships. Like you wanna, this is like the whole world, it's a dodgy world, and you wanna find people that you wanna build a relationship with. Because for us, and I wanna comment on what Lisa was saying, for galleries, like for my kind of gallery, the collector is as important as the artist. And I cannot only tend my artists because then I cannot sell their work. and actually the way that we sell and what makes our gallery a success, or how I have successful connections with my clients, is because we engage with them, because we can sit down and talk about the art and talk about like the progress of the artist. I can sit down with curators and discuss and really help what you were saying, like push the artist where it should be. Because it's not only about making sales, it's like, where do you place the artwork, of course. And so now basically it's just PR, you know, like going to the events, introducing yourself. I think it's like one-on-one kind of situation that can be very challenging. But I think when you find the right people, then you can build towards that, and that will open you other doors. Because then it's like a snowball. They were like, oh, they will introduce you to this. Oh, you should meet this person. So it's kind of like a one-to-one relationship.
And you were telling me that part of the reason that the art advisors are so important in LA is that there are so many new collectors who are coming into the field from the film world, from the technology world, who need some help in these beginning stages. So, so Lisa, do you have any advice for Omayra in terms of how to kind of cultivate these new collectors who are working with art advisors, and how to start to surface her program in a way that they can engage with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and excuse my language, but there's lots of asshole art advisors and there's lots of asshole collectors out there, but you have to find the ones you trust. And it's like you find these relationships with people and you're like, I feel great, I trust this person, I don't feel like I'm being shoved this stuff down my throat. I think it's really important to find advisors who aren't clinging on to their clients in a way that they own them. I think a lot of new advisors don't know. I've been doing this for a long time, so I've made every mistake you could possibly make, so I've come around to understanding how things should be. But, I think educating my clients, engaging them, when they get to know the gallery and when they get to know the artist, then they really get attached. So, like taking us to your artist studios, that's been like amazing, and it just makes it more personal. We also, as advisors, at least we do, try to get our new collectors to get involved in nonprofits at the low level, because it's not too expensive to get involved, and the nonprofits are the ground zero of the art platform, right? And so watching what the curators are putting in there is a great way to learn about new art. So we want to get them engaged in the institutional side. We just want them to understand the ecosystem, because you have a new buyer that comes in, and let's say he comes in thinking he's going to be a collector, he buys something, it goes up in value, I'm so smart. Oh my God, I'm taking it to auction. I just made $300,000, and suddenly I'm going down this wrong path. And I've watched it. We've all watched it happen many times. And it's even to people who don't need the money. It's just suddenly you're like, I'm so smart. I know what I'm doing. But the art world, you cannot just take. You can't just take. You have to give back. You have to care about the ecosystem. You have to participate in the nonprofits. You have to nurture the young galleries. I'm pretty much broke, but I buy from the young galleries too. Thank God. Oh, wait, payment plans are amazing.
Well,
Payment plans on a
we do
credit
not
card.
survive without payment plans. Like my clients know.
How interesting.
Yeah, so just in case you've never asked for one, a lot of galleries are actually really open to it. So, you know, I think just finding the right people you trust, and also like Daniel, he's such a pain in the ass. He text messages me all the time, but I love it because he'll, out of the blue, as a gallery, he knows I'm not paying attention. He knows I'm busy. He knows not to email me. And he'll send me a text and it's something I should look at. And I love that he does that. And so like that kind of aggressive, it's not aggressive like bye. He's just like, I know you're not paying attention. I need you to pay attention.
So we've been talking about the difference between collectors and buyers, how there are some people who buy art with a purely financial kind of goal in mind of flipping it or turning it around. So Omayra, we're talking about seeking out new collectors to bring into the program. Do you ever have to vet collectors and start to, is this something that is part of your program, or is it mainly about bringing in the new business and kind of thinking about the numbers of collectors?
I don't understand the question. To vet the collector?
Oh, vet. Like are there some collectors that you think are going to be flipping the artworks that you don't deal with, or that, you know?
Okay. Well, the kind of program that we have, it's very hard that kind of buyer will come or the kind of collector will come and try to flip my artist, because it requires time. You know, you have to sit down with the piece and like it, and I'm not saying that I have artists that I know and I'm sure they're gonna be big, and I work for them. Like this is it. I know. I bet on them. But the collectors that I have are not like that. Sometimes what had happened is that I have had artists that said, this piece is too political. I do not want somebody that is like from X kind of side of the political strata to own my work. And you understand. So that's kind of the vetting that I have to do. So right now it's just like getting as much new clients and being able to establish, and then in one point, if I meet 20 people, I might get 2 collectors at the end.
Wow, really? Is that and what happens to the other 18?
No, they'll just they will buy something from you, perhaps they won't buy, but then you find one person that from one art fair, you'll find one person that will buy from your gallery forever. And that's worth it. And that's people that sit down with you and I'm like, we're gonna do business always. And you're like, okay.
So you mentioned the political considerations, and this is a highly political moment where there are a lot of artists who are starting to, speak out and take stances about the sourcing of patronage. And it's gotten to the point where sometimes maybe these stances are very principled and authentic and important. Sometimes maybe the information may not be as clear. And I say this because, Anita, you have been such a spectacular patron to the artists of London, and yet there are some who still take umbrage to the fact that long time ago, your family was involved in the arms trade over 20 years ago, I believe. And I wonder, this kind of political dimension, how is that complicating this possibility of bridging collectors and artists?
Well, the way it comes across to myself is it's really, really sad, because it happens with a lot of younger artists, and the younger artists of today, many of them really are not well informed enough, and they don't do enough research, and they really do not want conversation, and we're always open to any conversation with these artists. They are, in a sense, a little bit of a troublemakers, but for us, we find this a great negativity, me and my team, and we haven't got time for this because we really need to be supporting the artists, that younger artists, and there's many artists out there that need our help. So we don't take much time pondering on this, but we're always open to conversation, and so, you know, that's how it really is. We just want to get on with our practice, and we want to expand the practice of the artists, and we want the artists to express their feelings and their political ideologies in the art, rather than and all the nuances and the grey areas in the art, but not so much in the conversation or vocalizing themselves.
I mean, I think it's so interesting that sometimes it seems like there's a dialogue because people go on social media and they say things or they protest, but oftentimes there isn't actually a dialogue because the sides are kind of talking past each other or just saying something and then not waiting for a response. I think that it's a fascinating topic. You were telling me about one one artist that you have in your program who didn't want to sell to a specific collector because of, I think, a political a political tie that the collector had. How much of a conversation is this with your artists in your gallery?
To be honest, that was like a very, very specific piece,
Mm-hmm.
which was from his practice that was actually directly tied to that collector.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was like a political moment, and it made a lot of sense because you have to be smart, and you cannot just sell anything to anybody. You know, like you gotta know where the piece goes. It has to go to the right hands too. And that was like the reason. But we have, I think our artists trust us, know that we're doing the right thing. And I agree, there has to be a conversation, and you cannot be naive in that matter and just like go against everything and understand like the complexity of these situations and these issues, and we cannot just destroy all the funding because we don't like certain things. That it's totally respectful, and in several points I am with the artist and I understand, but I think there's got to be a better way to engage in those conversations than just like, let's burn the place down.
Yeah, that's the one thing that it seems that there is an absence of this kind of dialogue. And that is something that I think should ideally be changed next year, especially considering that the real political sphere is so intensely divided and it seems like an intractable mess. But the art community doesn't have to be the same way. I mean, you would imagine that people can find some... I mean, Lisa, do you have any perspective on this? I guess it's not really exactly your wheelhouse.
Well, I mean, I have clients on the board of the Whitney, and there was a big issue recently that was really unfortunate and sad. And in all honesty, I don't know enough about the nuances, but I felt like we're losing some major patrons in the arts, and I think that's a big problem. Like, you don't get patrons like that all the time, and so you're going to lose a lot of people. Now, again, I'm not going to get into the politics, but I think it's a tricky issue, and I think there are things that are very nuanced, and we tend to jump on the bandwagon too fast and tear people down. Yana Peel, for example. Again, I don't know really right or wrong on any of these things, but it just seems like a very quick rapid move, and probably there's a lot of nuances to everybody's situation. So
to get back to the topic of finding the new collectors, you go to a lot of art fairs, constantly all over the world, I would imagine. What other avenues are you using in order to find new galleries, to get out there and be able to make these connections?
Oh my God. I mean, the best advice I could give anybody is talk to everyone. Understand everyone you're talking to has an agenda, so don't take it all literally, but I love talking to artists about who they're looking at. I love talking to collectors like Anita. I mean, I think I fell in love with this artist, that Valeria Napoleon, I'm butchering her name. I sat on a talk with her and I said, "What's the last thing you bought?" And she said, "Go look at this artist," and now I collect that artist. So, you know, you just have to ask people. I sit down with the galleries, and I actually, like, I just took some new collectors through, and I go slow, because I want to explain to them who the gallery is, where they are, their whole program, and you just get much more out of it. But there's nothing better than, you know, if I can get my client's attention off of an art fair, to sit down with me, either take a trip to Berlin off of any activity, or just stay with me in New York for the day and just go to a few galleries, sit down and talk and learn their whole program. And if they can't come with me, I do it a lot. I also surround myself with people far younger than me, because I have no idea what's going on. I'm stuck in disco. They are keeping me abreast of new galleries. I'm like, wait, what? I've never heard of that gallery. So I feel like, you know, you got to keep up with the new. So I'm trying to make sure I have lots of youngsters around me.
And Omayra, what about you when it comes to finding new collectors? Do you use any kinds of avenues outside of the art fairs, maybe technological, or any kind of strategies that that you found have been successful?
Yeah, we do, of course, like, we're very active on social media. We partnered up with Artsy, so that's a good platform for us. And we do a lot of, like, we, like, create events. So now we're doing, like, we have a new group of collectors back home, and we're very excited about it, because you need to have collectors for the galleries. And there's a whole new young group of collectors, and we're just, like, doing series of studio visits, and then we all go for lunch or do the lunch at the studio, and then you get to know the people. People take time to listen to the artist, to meet the artist in the program that we have, that they're alive. And so it's good. Those are the kind of things that we're just trying to come up. Like, studio visits are always such a wonderful experience for everybody, because you get to, sometimes your artists don't have access to hear you talk about their work. So that's the moment when we all, like, sit together and have a chat about the piece and a specific practice. So those are very interesting kind of events that we're trying to do, and those are kind of the strategies I'm doing in Los Angeles too, where I don't have a space.
Good.
I just wanted to comment on that. One thing I used to do before I had a child and I had more time, but that was really helpful, because, you know, as an art advisor, I have to constantly educate myself too, so I can educate my collectors. But what I loved doing, and I wish I could do more of it, is I would get involved with different institutions and travel with them. And there's nothing better than having, like, a curator and a museum director take you to, you know, China and get you into not just artist studios, but private collections, and you're really getting a learning opportunity there. And I did so much of that. India, Brazil. I never went to Colombia, though. And I highly recommend doing that if you have the means and time to do it.
I mean, you mentioned Artsy, and here I'm contractually obligated to say that ArtNet also has a gallery network. But it's I have a serious point to make about this, which is that ArtNet's gallery network was one of the first of its kind. I think it was the first of its kind on the internet. And in fact, it was most galleries' first websites, which is really interesting, because the whole online kind of art apparatus is still so nascent. It's very to plug ArtNet again. ArtNet is 30 years old, but it seems that this whole tactic of bringing the art market and the art world online is just nowhere near where it is eventually going to be, where it should be, and also, I mean, when we talk about global travel, going to all these art fairs, there is I think, a slight tinge of the conscience to think about the carbon footprint, obviously, which is something that, I mean, I literally just recorded a podcast on this the other day, which is a big topic that I think we're going to be contending with more and more, especially, you know, coming, I think, next year, probably, as the election looms. But the question is, what do you think would be the ideal kind of technological interface that could help connect collectors with dealers and allow art advisors to make these connections? And it just doesn't seem like there's something that really exists like that right now.
Can I comment on it?
Yes.
I get DM'd, direct messaged on Instagram all the time, and I don't mind at all. Actually, it's funny. It's more artists DMing me, and I just tell them it's not what I do. I don't work in that. But they're like, "Well, you look at my art," so I'm assuming they're doing the same thing to collectors. But I do think that Instagram, and I like more and more when I start with I just started with a new client. And he's been on the Instagram, which can be really dangerous, because I'm like, oh boy. Okay, so I've got to reel him back in, but I don't want to take away his confidence, and he's finding things he likes on his own. So I'm trying to navigate that. I'm not sure how I'm going to navigate it yet, because I don't want to, but it's, again, important to me that it's, first of all, things can look really good on Instagram. You can actually make art to look good on Instagram. But I also it matters to me, the conversation. It's part of what gallery it's participating in. So, but I do think, I just found it interesting that this gentleman who's like in the finance world is spending so much time on Instagram. So it's got to be good for galleries to be, because you can do like business on Instagram where they can contact you and you can buy from the gallery through Instagram. Not to take away from ArtNet at all.
30 years old.
But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, there's probably a new ArtNet Instagram social media thing coming out soon or something.
Well, Anita, your program is very future-oriented. And a lot of you work with Data Editions, which is very future-oriented. You have your own blog of collecting advice. What kinds of how does technology help you find new galleries and new artists that you want to work with?
Well, the way it's evolved is when we started, I don't think anyone even had a website. I would say to a gallery, do you have a website? They're saying, what's that? That's how it all started. And I used to use magazines, and that was my way. Art Forum was an amazing tool for me, Art Review when that came out, and all these things. But then, of course, technology moved in, and then there became Facebook, which wasn't very a useful tool, but the biggest tool for me personally is Instagram, because I know that that what will happen is that a gallery, they know I'm watching every day, and they might just like show it on Instagram that day, and then I have a view of it visually, and I might inquire about that work, and that's happened a few times, and it sounds a little bit naive and a strange way around things, but that does happen. Direct messaging, as you say, and is a very important tool as well, through Facebook, through Instagram also. I think also, as a reaction to all this digital as well, it's nice. I think I'm also going back to the analog as well. We produce books we've produced about 40 books so far that we hope that people use for research, and we have a library that is open, an art library that is open to all the students, etc. And I myself go back now to books and magazines, and the analog way as well as the digital way. I'm looking at every possible way I can soak up in information.
So I think before opening the question up to the audience, I'd just like to ask Omayra, how many new collectors have you met on Instagram?
I actually sold on Instagram.
Really?
Yeah. I had a client who inquired by a piece that we post, and one of the members of my team that actually handles the Instagram, she's like, "Oh my God, somebody asked me about this," and I was like, "Okay, go ahead, do the sale," and she actually did it, and then the client, it was somebody that was in Colombia, and then they came and they wanted to see the piece live, and they saw it, and they're happy, and now they're buying more stuff from us.
What an irony that the most effective e-commerce site for art is Instagram. Okay, any questions from the audience?
Just wanted to say thank you guys so much. This was a great conversation. My name is London Balbosa, and I'm the founder of Art Hub. That's ARTEHUB. And we are, my co-founder and I, we're Home Depot backed. We received a seed investment to build an online e-commerce platform for aspiring art collectors and emerging artists. We're based out of Atlanta, Georgia. And I just want to get your opinions about, you guys elaborated on a lot of different things that are just validating what we're doing. And I just want to get your opinions on, you know, the future of e-commerce and art, and how you think that is going to continue to drive art sales in the next 10 to 20 years.
Big one.
I mean, I think we're just at the beginning. I think more and more people will buy online. You can even go into a major auction now, and the amount of online bidding is pretty remarkable. I think more and more collectors are spending a lot of time online, not just on Instagram, but reading art news, reading top 10 lists, reading this, reading that, trying to educate themselves. And I think as long as you can supplement the digital world with the physical world, you know, I mean, it's easy for me, and this might be a terrible thing to say, but it's easy for me to buy something if it's an artist I know really well physically, and I'm only seeing it digitally. I have bought that. It's a bit dangerous, but so I think probably more and more, and I think as long as you can educate, I mean, it's great to hear that you're in Atlanta, you said? I mean, you know, we're New York, London, LA, but I think, you know, the whole middle of the United States, it's great if you're going to encourage and nurture new collectors, because I feel like there's enough supply right now, but not enough demand, so it's great.
Not everyone can travel to art fairs, so what happens is all the galleries, they send their PDF, which I managed to read them all, funny enough. And, and the experience of reading the PDFs and actually being at the art fair are totally different. It's two different experiences. And of course, you can acquire from PDF and you can acquire from online, but you're not actually seeing it, and it's not tangible unless unless it's a digital work.
Maybe some of the newer technologies with virtual reality might enhance that, but I do agree. I go through every single preview. Usually if I like something, I still like it. It's the things I didn't like in the PDF that I'm always like, wow, this is much better in person. So I think it's just certain things don't photograph the right way, certain things flatten out, certain things don't look the right scale, but maybe as technology gets more and more complex, it'll be able to render 3 dimensions better.
Yeah, I think it's a great initiative, because we are all seeking out ways to connect. And that's like what it will happen, that even if it's not like making sales, at least people are getting to see some specific work and like, oh, I'm intrigued by this, and then it will open the doors for something else. So, congrats.
So when you're
I hate email. And I literally I'm trying to be post email, and now I'm trying to be post text. I want to be direct or on the phone. I don't actually need to see them, but I'm happy to. Depends on how I look on that day. But I think, one email begets another, texting begets another, and it's just become such a time suck. And I yell at my staff all the time because I'm like, pick up the phone. I know you just emailed, pick it up.
So if there's one takeaway from today, it's do not send Lisa emails. She hates emails.
I have a very specific question. Some collectors find themselves in a situation where they supported some artists earlier. They took the time to visit their studios. They took the time to have conversations with them, sort of real dialogues. And those artists obviously at some point got picked up by the top 10. And you find yourself, some collectors find themselves in a situation that they have no longer access to the same artists, and they still want to buy those artists. So whoever is going to answer, I would like obviously to hear Lisa's answer. What do you do in a situation like this beyond move to other set of artists?
You move to another set of artists. No, it's an unfortunate scenario. Look, a lot of people will seek out an art advisor because they think we have access, and we do not have access. And I'm like, don't give me your list of artists to go get access to. I'm not going to work for you. But it is, here's where the real problem happens. I understand when the gallery needs to place works in institutions, right? So I get that. I think the problem comes when it's like, well, you can have access to this if you buy these other things. And I think to myself, do your artists know that you're pawning off the one for the others, and do the others know? And so basically you're going to sell it to the biggest asshole who's going to spend the most money on whatever and then resell those artists just to get to this one. I don't know the answer to the question, and it's just unfortunately a conundrum we're in. And I always just say, I never get mad at the galleries, and I'm always really nice and humble about it and patient, because eventually that artist that you don't have access to anymore, it's going to calm down and you'll be able to get access to it again, or maybe it's better to just buy it at auction. But sometimes it's just an unfortunate byproduct of the system right now.
I think if it's a really great artist and you've been collecting the artist for 10 years and they're reaching mid-career and they're producing maybe 20, 30 artworks a year, then you're lucky to actually have access once every 3 years. And that is an amazing feat. And I understand 100% this situation.
And it might be better for you for the works you already own. If the gallery is really prioritizing museums, then it begets your works that you already have, that these get prioritized in institutions.
Well, there's something important on this discussion, because it is not only that and I'm totally against that. I think it's, I don't think you should not I don't like that attitude of not being open with your artist, and the manipulation is something that really I find as a professional in the art world. I make a living out of selling art. The fact that all these games are played, I think they're not good. They're not good for the artists. They're not good for the collectors. They're not. You don't even know who's coming to your door, and you're already pushing them out. I don't think that's healthy. And when they say, "Oh, you gotta prioritize museums," well, the museum also has to want that artist.
Exactly.
It's not that you get the artist there. It's like the museum has to say, "I actually want it." So you gotta be careful with that.
I think it's very important that the artists are very, very savvy and understand what the galleries are doing with their artwork, because a lot of it is, well, so-and-so spent $100 million with us this year, so they're going to get first access to it, but that person might not be the best patron for this artwork. So it's really, the artist has got to take control when it gets to that level and really have it's unfortunate because they want to not do this, but I think they should.
I want to address a question to Omayra. Thank you. You have mentioned Cardenas. I want to ask you, do you promote artists from Colombia other than Cardenas? And also want to know if Cardenas was ever related to Juan or Santiago Cardenas, which you probably know who they are. And also, I wanted to ask you, do you have any art by Deborah Arango, and who would be young artists in Colombia who are actually, growing, or that you think can become big in the future?
I think you may have met a new collector.
We'll talk later. No, we have a big Latin American program, so a lot of my artists are Colombian. We have on the Visionarios program, that is the one that Miguel is part of. Most of them are Colombian, 95%. And then in my Young Roaster program also. So, and he's not related to the other Cardenas. They're very different family. I do not know who could have Deborah Arango right now. I might have some ideas in mind, and I'll be happy to share them with you. And who are great Colombian artists to look out. I'll have to vouch for my own, because this is what I do. Carolina Caicedo, I think it's a fantastic artist. Noemi Perez and Felipe Arturo and Abel Rodriguez. Those are fantastic artists producing alive with major, really powerful work that are thinking and working in a very honest way.
Here we go. Microphone is coming.
Hi, thanks for sharing your thoughts. When you advise somebody on a piece or sell a piece, part of collecting is thinking that the appreciation of the price will occur for that piece. So what method or perspective do you use that you think, okay, it's, let's say $40,000, in 10 years it'll be 80, or it's 10% per year increase? Like, how do you figure
You never
the future?
give that advice, ever. You always, first of all, art is not liquid, ever. On any given day, at any given moment, your artwork is worth zero, even if it's the $100 million Basquiat head. Selling art is very complicated and requires a lot of work, but I think, I love this quote I read somewhere, I think Landau said it, you can make money buying and selling art, you can make a fortune holding it. Your held value is always higher than your transacted value. But
yes, that's what I'm asking. How do you know the held value will go up?
you can't.
Okay.
You can't. 100,000 things can happen, and you should never ever buy art if your expectations are that it will always go up, because it won't always go up. A lot will go to zero. It just does.
Yeah, well, most does, but
I think, a whole collection is sometimes more valuable than the individual pieces, and that's why being a confident collector and building a collection that has some pieces that may not have commercial value. And by the way, commercial value is in crisis right now. So what we consider commercially valuable is just some bullshit at auction. So I think there will be some changes and some positive things that happen. But I do think, as a confident collector, even if the auction market is telling you it's zero today, your value of a whole collection over time can still be something quite remarkable.
Okay, maybe last question over here. I believe. Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon, Luis Vasquez. So if we have to summarize the whole meeting in 3 main bullet points, as far as the main question goes, how do we are able to gather new collectors? Can we summarize in 3 main bullet points how can we actually gather new collectors? What are the strategies to be put in place in order to do so?
Does anybody want to field that one? Or I mean, I think from what has been said here, I think one big takeaway is to actually engage with the collectors, give them the time, take them seriously, give them an education, and not just try to sell to them. I think Anita has said that the one thing that really, kind of is a huge turnoff is when somebody is just treating her as if she's not willing to spend the time to really engage with the art and really learn about the art. So you should take them seriously. Then I would just say Instagram is seems to be really useful.
Art fairs.
And art fairs.
Oh, can I make
How about that?
one more?
Go
Can
ahead.
I do one more? Because Lisa mentioned about institutions, and I think it's so important that collectors support the smaller institutions and the bigger institutions. They get so much out of it. It's so rewarding, and you're giving so much to the ecosystem.
You could meet a lot of great collectors from the boards of those, at least in New York City, the smaller institutions. All of the board members are potential great collectors.
That is great and very actionable advice because the boards are obviously publicly listed. So, all right. Well, thank you very much. This has been a lovely conversation.